Hello, everybody. How's it going? I mean, pretty good, kind of good. Can you all hear me? Okay, thanks, Bill. Excellent. We will give everybody a few minutes, or maybe we'll give them like 1 minute. We'll see how it goes. We've got some fun stuff today. Anybody have anything exciting from their weekend they'd like to share? Nothing. Just nothing. Nobody went to the lake or tried to relax or any of that stuff? Anything exciting this weekend, Miss Melanie? Nakia, Kristen, nobody did anything? Nothing? Come on, people. Wake up. Muted, Melanie. You're still muted, Melanie. We can't hear you. Oh, you're good. There you go.
Sorry about that. Dog was barking, so I automatically mute. Yeah, I showed a house for one of my realtor buddies, and unfortunately they didn't get it, but it was a nice thing to do on Saturday. And I mean, market's busy. I just wish there were more listings for sure, and I wish I could get some of them.
Dig them up.
The what?
I said it would be nice if we could just dig them up.
I know, that's exactly right.
Well, we'll hopefully be addressing that in today's message. So we'll see how many. So I wanted to start out with just kind of letting you all know how I feel about the events that have taken place in the last week. And I know everybody, it's very personal for everyone. And I am one of those people that when something does mean a great deal to me, or it is extremely personal, or something that touches me very deeply, I'm one of those people that goes inward. I'm not always very quick to share my emotions on matters that are very deep and that matter to my core, if that makes sense. It's much easier for me to share where I found a pair of shoes or my favorite new paint color or something like that. But things that truly rock me to my core, I tend to keep those inside and mull over them. However, I did want to share with you all a little bit and just to maybe just have a few minutes of discussion over it, because I think as white people, we tend to think, well, I don't deserve to have an opinion on this, or I should probably just keep my mouth shut because I don't really know what I'm talking about. And that's true. You don't really know. All of us, we don't, right? Like we don't live that life. You know, people have joked with my husband. I don't know how many of you all know. Anyway, my husband's Black, and so we've been married for 22 years. Don't tell him that. And we have heard that, like, we live in an area that is very diverse. Our children have never had issues. We have never had issues. So we've lived in kind of this little bubble of what that looks like as far as racial tension and judgment and this, that, or the other. However, we have heard things from our friends, from our family, you know, little lighthearted, jokey things. And people say, oh, well, Troy is like the whitest Black person I know. You know, and they say it jokingly. And in the past, we've kind of laughed that off. And so the thing that I want to encourage you all to do today is just talk about it. You know, talk about it. When people say to me, oh, I don't see color. Bullshit. You need to see color, right? Like, you need to appreciate everyone for who they are. You need to get to know people better. I mean, I have to say, when COVID started, my husband and I were going to Home Depot. And in Illinois, you have to wear the mask everywhere you go. And so we were going in, and we both have these gray masks that say Team Kentucky, but we generally turn them inside out, and so they're just gray. And he had on a ball cap and his mask. And when we started to walk in the store, I looked at him and I said, "Oh my God, this is the first time ever that I've felt a little uncomfortable walking in somewhere with you." And he kind of looked at me, and I was like, "Not for me, but being a little more aware and conscientious of what people in that store, when they first look up and see a black man coming in with a mask on, right?" And that was the first time in 22 years that that I had felt that way. That and because I don't pay attention to it a lot, and it's time to pay attention. And so I guess what I want to say is to my black friends is that I will never understand, as very close to home as it is for me, I will never understand it. You know, my son, for those of you who know him, you can tell he's not white. You can't really tell what he is. He was pulled over when he was at school in Tennessee by a police officer that asked him to get out of the car, and then proceeded to ask him if he smoked marijuana and played basketball. It's like, what? Um, I will never understand, right? My daughter, who's very passionate about this, who, when you look at her, you can tell that she's black, right? Like you can tell a little more with her than you can with him. And so she really, really wanted to go to a protest. And I and my husband and I were very nervous. I felt it very important that she be a part of it. I felt it that if she felt that strongly in her heart and soul about something, I wanted her to be able to express that and be a part of it. So we agreed to drive her downtown, that we would not get out of the car. We would drive past the protesters and allow her to photograph the things that she saw, and to give her feelings on it. And she's very similar to me. So we went down and she took some amazing pictures. You all look at her Instagram page. It's MC Photography on Instagram. And she posted those pictures, and she found a picture from the 60s when they were boycotting. There was an issue with black soldiers in the Vietnam War, and there were protests. And she found a picture of that. And then she posted a picture from the night before last. And she posted those pictures side by side and said, "Look how far we've come." And the only thing I can say to you all is, please, please just discuss it. Don't be afraid to discuss it. You know, I've had friends that have said to me before, "Oh, I have black friends." And I'm like, "Well, how many times have they eaten dinner at your table? Or, you know, would you be comfortable having them stay overnight in your home?" Or those types of things. Get to know people, right? It's time, I feel like, for us to stop being so maybe shy or afraid that we're going to say or do the wrong things. You know, especially like as a non-black person, that you're afraid that you're going to offend someone or say something that you shouldn't say. I can tell you this as I'm babbling, but hopefully, I just want you all to feel a little bit better about asking questions that you may feel like are inappropriate or dumb or ignorant. That we need to be able to support each other and help each other through that. And I will say this, I have been looking at social media a little more than I normally would. And, you know, people have their opinions on everything. And as long as they are respectful, and as long as they come from a place of curiosity, and they come from a place of just wanting to know better and be better, that's fine. When people come from a place of judgment and they come from a place of ignorance, and I had this conversation with my coach, and she said, "Kim, people who are ignorant don't know that they're ignorant." And I kind of think in this case you do. And I think that the people around you may know. So I'm just going to say, please tread very lightly on the things that you say and do on social media. As far as taking a stand for what's going on, absolutely. But the minute that judgment or ignorance is reflected, I will 100% step in on that. And when I say step in on that, I mean, when I see ignorance or intolerance or things like that, like, to me, that would be an immediate cause for us to no longer be in business together. So I wanted to be super clear on that. If you all see something that makes you uncomfortable, that you think is in poor judgment, or something that is not reflective of who we want to be, I would really appreciate it if you would let me know that. And then also, Gary Keller sent out a statement. Did everyone get that email last night? Just about again, zero tolerance, and where we stand on that as a company. And that we are going to be putting together some IALCs. We just have to do better, period. I can stop rambling. We just have to do better. We have to stop pretending like it doesn't exist. We have to stop pretending like, oh, we're so much better and those days are over and those days are behind us, because clearly they are not. I am the daughter of a police officer and the wife of a Black man. So I have a very unique perspective. And I can tell you this, if my father had been a part of what happened last week and he had been present, I do believe he would have shot and killed his brother in blue immediately. That's how we feel as a family. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, or however you feel about it, I know for sure he would have never stood by and watched something like that happen. So all I'm asking is, don't put yourself in harm's way, but please do all you can to educate yourself a little bit more, and just be a part of the cause. And when I say the cause, I mean the greater cause, the good cause. But when we sit back and we try to pretend like, it doesn't exist. I had a girlfriend one time. We have several friends that are gay, and they're all married. And I had a girlfriend one time that she is married to she's Black and she's married to a white man. And she was talking about this gay couple friend of ours that was getting married. And she said, I just don't understand why they have to get married. And she and I aren't nearly as close today as we were prior to that conversation. And she said, I just don't understand why they have to get married. And I said, Julie, what if the government decides next that you can't be married to someone that's not your race? Like, do you think that it's just these people right now, right? So it goes back to when people, like, I've seen people put on social media and they're like, Black lives matter. Well, all lives matter. Yeah, but right now it's the Black lives that are having issues, right? So can we not just think so much of ourselves, or be so entitled that, yes, all lives do matter. They absolutely do. And right now it's a time for us to focus on the ones that are really being persecuted at a super high level. Does that make sense? Does this help at all? Do you all just think I'm like a crazy rambling? Just please don't be afraid to talk about it. Like, it's sad and it's terrible and it's scary. And I just think that we have to talk about it, period. So if that's uncomfortable for you, I'm super sorry, but please just know you can talk to me about anything. I'm very open, and perfectly willing to have any kind of conversation or answer any questions to the very best of my ability. All I know is I never have to worry about that. I never have to worry about walking into a store or being pulled over or whatever. I personally never have to worry about that. And it's sad. It's sad. So anyway, let's move on now to something positive and good, and hopefully we can all come together and help each other get through all this. So I would love to start out every week with a book recommendation. I did not start reading very much until about maybe 6 years ago. I got out of college. I was over it, didn't want to read another book, didn't care if I read another book. And then I got married and I had kids and I didn't really have time to read books. So I probably went 10 years without really reading a book. I would like skim through, you're welcome, thank you, Bree. I would skim through books just to, like with a book club, pretend like I read it, but I really didn't read it. So when I started making a true concerted effort to read more, I also decided to stop watching television. So this was about, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I guess. And I still see things. I mean, I'm not a cave person, but I've never seen an episode of The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. I've never seen, I just don't see, anyway. So, but I read. And so one of the books that I'm reading right now is called 1 Million Followers by Brendan Kane. And let me see if I can share. It may pop up and it may not. It's not going to. I love when it just doesn't like cooperate. Let's see here if I can find it. You all don't need that. You need this. Let me come back and share and see. Ah, here it is. So this is what the book looks like. 1 million followers, how I built a massive social following in 30 days. So obviously right now I think people are turning to social media. I would love to see people flood social media with some positive and supportive things. I feel very strongly right now that people need to have a sense of community, right? They want to feel like they belong to something. I think that's why people are protesting. I think that's why people are, creating posts and saying things, because there really is a need to come together, especially at a time where we've all been so separated and divided. And I don't mean just racially, I mean like in your homes with COVID, right? So I feel like we've had this isolating experience and then all of this happens. And I feel like right now, people need to feel a stronger sense of community than they really have in a very long time. So I had started reading this book a few months ago and I'd actually stopped reading it. I didn't finish it, which I very rarely do. This was one of those books that I did not get the audiobook. I just got the physical book. And normally I do both. And it, I don't know, messed up with my jam somehow. But anyway, so, but that book, 1 million followers, just basically on content, how to get people to follow. Some of the things we think are important aren't really important. And I'm going to be teaching an Instagram class later this month. So if Kayla's on here, she's going to be like, really nice to know. But we're going to put that on the calendar for later in the month, of just some different things you can do for Instagram, some apps you can use to make your posts all look consistent and that type of thing. So I thought this was an appropriate book to share this week. One more thing. I'm just giving you one more thing to add to your list of things to do. Literally, you all, when you do start to get a little more purposeful about social media, just time block for your engagement, right? Time block for social media engagement, even if it's just 15 minutes. And so what I have been doing now is I have been getting on my phone and scrolling through like Facebook or Instagram, what have you. And like, for instance, this morning I was on Facebook, and it's actually one of the clients I'm physically working with right now. And his wife had put on their happy birthday to him yesterday, and I didn't know it was his birthday. So what I've been doing is making sure I'm scrolling through social media on my phone, and then I keep my laptop open beside me, and anytime a birthday or something like that pops up, I just go ahead and enter it into command. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone when I am time blocking for my social media. I'm also making the changes, because if I make a note of it or screenshot it or write it down, it is not going to happen. I would love to say it will, but it's just not. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about this little quote that I ran across this weekend. And it was from John Maxwell, and he said, "It's the stretching that makes the rubber band valuable." It's the stretching that makes the rubber band valuable. What do you all think that means? And please, don't everybody answer at once. Like, be respectful.
Metaphor. It's a metaphor that means that if you're not flexible, you're worthless, because without flexibility, things can't really happen, because life requires flexibility.
It does. I mean, especially lately. Thank you very much for that, Donna. Thank you. I think in all things requires flexibility, right? What else? When you hear that, it's the stretching that makes the rubber band valuable. Why can't I see everybody? Why do you all have your cameras off? I mean, Karen, Lisa, you're gorgeous. I know you're gorgeous.
I was eating lunch. Sorry.
Oh, okay, you're good. Yeah, no.
What that means to me is that when you stretch yourself in learning something, you become more valuable to yourself and to everybody around you.
100%. That was where, for me, the stopping the TV and starting to read came from. That was a big stretch for me. That was really hard, because at night it was just kind of the thing. The TV went on, and we would lay in bed and watch TV. And I feel like by reading and growing personally, that it's helped me, whether it's in coaching or in my job or just in my life, whatever the case may be, right? What else? Thank you. And please continue to enjoy your lunch.
On a, if you want to call it maybe spiritual level, I see it too as something where if you're not, it's those things in life that you deal with that are difficult. It's those times that really define you as a person. And if everything was all hunky-dory all the time, we would never grow. It's those, it's those things that, it's those hard times that make us grow.
It is. And it's hard to see that when we're in the middle of it, even though we know it. I've literally like had to have affirmations with myself in the middle of those hard times of, I know there's a purpose for this. I know there's a greater good for this. I know God has meaning in this, you know, whatever that may be. And it doesn't make it any easier, right? Like
Right.
what's going on right now. I think that this, just in our society, I think this has been a huge wake up call for whatever reason, more than any other, right? But this has been a huge wake up call for people to stretch themselves a little more and have conversations, be able to, it's not just about how you, what you hear and what the actions are, it's how you react to it. And I think that when you grow yourself personally, you have so much more control over that. Whether it's what a client says to you, or what another agent says to you, you know, there's nothing better than when you're in the middle of negotiations and you've just got like this ignorant realtor on the other end, and it's tough, you know, because what you want to say and what you have to say are two very different things, as well as the way you say it, right? What else? Thank you. We talk about stretching. I immediately think of exactly stretching outside of my comfort zone, like doing something that I normally wouldn't do. Well, there's lots of things. I want to hear from you all.
Kim,
Yes.
this is Nancy.
Hi.
Hi. I was thinking when I heard that quote, I thought of the stretching in terms of like as you were talking about, you know, all the difficult challenges that we go through in life. I've obviously had my fair share like everyone has, but I try to use those as a plus when I'm talking to clients and even potential clients. Like I often work with first-time buyers, and I share with them that, you know, I became a buyer specialist because I had a really horrible realtor buying my very first house and lost my earnest money, never got it back. And then that realtor ended up going to federal prison for evading taxes 20 years later. 20 years later, I saw him in the front page of the newspaper and I thought, well, he finally got his. But I never did get my earnest money back. And at the time, I was a married young couple with a baby, and that was a lot of money to us.
Sure.
And I never forgot that. And I remember thinking, why isn't someone really representing buyers? Because I didn't even know that agent that we just walked in on, you know, it was a agent, we just walked into a place and we didn't even realize there was no buyer agency at the time. You know, and so I learned so much. And my parents said to me, you know, that agent could care less about you and your husband and your baby. He doesn't care about you at all, or getting your money back. And so I remember the callousness of it, and it was so upsetting. I cried and cried. We never did get that $500 back. But to this day, you know, I've bought 7 houses since then all over the country, and I still get that excitement. Like last Saturday, I was working with some first-time buyers and, you know, multiple offer, of course, and I stayed up till 11 o'clock at night to get them into contract and to get it signed, you know, on a Saturday at 11. And my kids were like, you've been at this all day. And I'm like, into the night, you're still up. And I'm like, that's right, because I'm going to get them this house they really want, and I'm not going to bed until I do it.
And see,
Like
now looking back on that, what a blessing that was.
Yeah, I mean, all that, you know,
No one
sometimes
will
I'll
ever
even
feel that way
share
with
it.
you.
That story about how painful it was to lose my earnest money on my very first house, and how buyers shouldn't have to feel like the realtor that they are working with, you know, doesn't really care about their best interests. So You know, that's why I really am doing what I'm doing, you know. That's
Well,
a
good.
passion for it.
And I'm sure you have to make sacrifices sometimes to make that
Oh,
happen.
yeah.
You
That's
know?
not the
Yeah.
first offer I've written on a Saturday night at 11. I've been up to 12 or 1 sometimes when there was an open house the next day, trying to get my buyer into contract. Multiple times I've been up really late on a weekend, and if that's what it takes, then I'm going to do it, you know. And I show my buyers how committed I am, and these buyers kept texting me, "You are just the best. We just can't believe it," you know. And I
Aw.
said, you know, it's really that you know, experience, that upsetting experience I had like 30 years ago is what makes me do it. It makes me be so committed and dedicated to my first time buyers today, you know.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that leads into the very next thing is I wrote down here, doing what is required only prevents customer dissatisfaction. You must do more than is required to truly satisfy a customer. And I'll say that again. Doing what is required only prevents customer dissatisfaction. You must do more than is required to truly satisfy a customer. So it's the same thing as when you're talking to your kids and they're like, well, I mean, I cleaned my room and I didn't fail algebra and I didn't, you're like, well, that's great because those are all things you should be doing anyway, right? Like, I'm not going to give you a trophy or a medal because, you know, you didn't fail a class. Like, you shouldn't fail a class. So it's the exact same thing when we're talking about the standard that we hold ourselves to. And I'm so sorry, I just realized my mom's neighbor is like building a swing set or something. So sorry. Is what are we doing to go above and beyond to ensure that we're doing more than what is really required? When you talk about when we're bringing all these things together and we're talking about a sense of community, people feeling detached or isolated, and what you're doing on social media and how you're participating and all of these things that you do, right, to create this this circle or this sphere of influence, we could call it, right? Your sphere. What are the things that you're doing during that transaction? For instance, there was an open house on my personal home yesterday in Illinois. I'm in Kentucky. No one was there. My family hasn't been there all weekend. And I know that the open house was yesterday afternoon, and I have not heard anything from my agent. Now, it's not lost on me how difficult it probably is to have conversations with me specifically about selling my home, right? Like I understand that that's probably a little bit of a not easy thing. And so my guess would be they didn't have any people at the open house, or there were very few, or would be my guess, because she's probably thinking, oh crap, how do I tell her nobody showed up, right? Maybe I didn't market it right. Maybe I didn't, right? All these things going through her head. I get where she's coming from. And a quick little text that said, I mean, I have no idea what happened. We had nobody through the open house. We had like 3 showings yesterday outside of the open house. But my point is, that doesn't go on my list of, wow, above and beyond. So when you talk about a system that you're putting into place and what that looks like, I know I did it years ago when I first got into real estate, and I would have an open house. My open house was from 1 to 3 or 2 to 4. And at 4 o'clock, I locked the door and I got in my car and off I went. Family time, we're going to go to dinner, we're going to do whatever. I've worked today, I'm done. Right? When really I should have like until 6 blocked off. That free time doesn't start until 6, because between 4 and 6, I'm breaking everything down. I'm writing out the notes and comments of whatever people said. I'm sending the feedback to the seller. I'm touching base with the people and thanking them for coming. Maybe preparing notes to mail out that week for people that came through, whatever, right? But planning, blocking the time. So like just when I said earlier, time block for engagement, time block for this. So if you have an open house, what's that above and beyond, right? I didn't do the above and beyond for years. I literally locked the door and off I went. So what are you doing that's above and beyond? So right now, not just with open houses, what are some of the things that you all are doing just that you do regularly in your business that you feel like, okay, this is probably a little extra, you know, little icing on the cake, a little glitter on the cookies, whatever you want to call it. What are you all doing that you feel like is stretching a little bit and that you're going above and beyond? It's not just the norm. Really?
One,
Okay, good. Whew.
one comes to mind to me. It just seems like sometimes I tell myself, my God, there is nobody else out there that does this crap and and admits it. But I had a client last year. She's actually a friend of mine, and she needed to move quickly. She got relocated with Macy's as a store manager and had to sell and relocate to her new place. And she's divorced, and her only kid is grown and gone and everything. So she was most of the week already gone to the next place. And she had a college-age girl that was living in the home to supposedly take care of the 2 dogs, because obviously she couldn't have them in a hotel and blah, blah, blah. This college-age girl was, let's just say, she wasn't earning her pay. So I was, showing what happened, and I'd head out to the house and clean up dog crap. And one time the girl didn't show up, and one of the dogs is very difficult. Like, you can't have the dog there. It has never been caged, which, that's a whole nother issue. So when you couldn't let people in. So I loaded them in my car and drove them all over Powell and Dublin. And the one, he thought he was a smaller dog and was in my lap through the entire 2.5 hours through these showings. And I finally just stopped at a parking lot, at a Kroger parking lot, and I called her. I called my seller, and I was like, I hope that you relay to everybody, because I'm sending you a picture right now of what I'm dealing with.
I was about to say, I
hope you tell everyone,
Yes.
And she just cracked up. But that was one time, but there were several times I did that for her to get this place sold and gone. But I think there's a lot of realtors out there that do that sort of thing. I mean, they'll do what they have to do to support their people, and some of it is funnier than others, but yeah. So
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. I mean, I know it's hard, like, you'll do whatever you have to do, right? But to actually, or we say we'll do whatever we have to do, but to actually do it, that's walking the walk. Thanks. What else?
Lucy, I carry a tub in the back of my car that has Lysol and Clorox wipes, disposable gloves, and I was doing an open house for a luxury agent at Consultants who shall remain nameless. And I went into this vacant home, and it looked like someone had poured chocolate syrup into the powder room commode. We know what it was. That was my first thing I did. Fortunately, I'm always 45 minutes, half hour early after I put up the sign. So if it's hot, I can cool down or get settled, whatever. But yeah, I had to clean the toilet because somebody's going to come in with a kid and they're going to have to go to the bathroom. And I always have a roll of toilet paper with me and tissues and all that other fun stuff. And thank God that I have always done that and carried that stuff with me. I can't tell you how many times I've had to do that.
Oh my God.
Or the Febreze. I showed a house on Saturday, and all of us just about gagged from the dog smell.
Oh.
And they couldn't even get through the showing. And that was another consultant's property who I won't mention by name.
Oh. I mean, you all, seriously, Febreze. I had one of the agents that showed my house this weekend said, "What do you do to make your house smell so good?" And I literally, I mean, I haven't been there for a week, but I spray the couches, and like after the beds are made and everything, I spray the beds with Febreze. I don't know, but it's a phenomenal thing. I'm like, it's just Febreze.
Well, I carry the plugins now too, and get there, since I'm a half hour early, they have enough time to heat up.
Yeah. So just little things like that. So what else? When we're talking about like customer relations, what are some of the things that you do to go above and beyond? Like, how do you go above and beyond to communicate? Do you send follow-up notes? What are some of the things that you feel like you're doing to really stretch? And if you don't feel like you're doing anything, that's fine too. That's what this conversation is for, so you can see what you need to do and how you need to change things up. Because the bottom line is, guys, if you're just doing enough to get by and to get the job done, there's probably not a whole lot of referring going on, right? Like, they may think of you in conversation or what have you. It's when you go above and beyond that your name starts to get thrown out there and you don't even have to ask.
I will tell you that right before this call, I was on the phone with a former client. They all become friends.
Yeah.
So many of them become
Volumes for
friends.
you.
Yeah, and then I had to tell her I have a meeting, I have to get off. But I just closed with a young couple, and they hadn't even completely moved into the house, and we had all that rain, and it was completely flooded. Their basement was completely ruined, brand new. They hadn't even been in it completely yet, so it was a disaster. So I had to help them. We used the home insurance, but they needed several different opinions, so we had to work through that. And we were closed and everything, but they knew I would help them. And one of the things that I've discovered is the communication is absolutely the key. And if your people will texting is so personal. It's so much more personal than so many other things. And all through the process, especially with new home buyers, they really don't understand the process. So the texting and letting them know every step of the way really does help. But staying in contact after you close, being truly a friend to the people that you've built a relationship with, really seems to be the key for getting referrals in the future, because they come, you just don't even expect it, and they just come.
It's very true. Very true. No, good. Thank you for sharing that. And the reason that I wanted to find out what you all were doing was going back to the books for just a second. My son was going to go visit his girlfriend today, and they were going to go to the pool. And I said, "Are you going to be swimming more or laying out more?" And he's like, "Today we're probably just going to lay out more." And I was like, "Well, do you need to take anything else with you?" And he was like, "Oh, my book." And he goes and grabs Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so we've been having conversations about that book. We've had conversations about that book for a very long time, but we've lately had some more serious conversations about it. And so I want to share this screen with you all. Can you guys see the cash flow quadrant there? So this is just a picture that I found somewhere. This isn't like the true one, but this is from Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow, his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And this is what we call the cash flow quadrant. And so when we talk about what this looks like, meaning on the left-hand side of this line here, you have an employee, right? Someone that has a job. So I'm just going to use my son because right now he's an employee of Home Depot. So he works a certain amount of hours and he receives a certain amount of money for working those hours. Then you move down in here to self-employed. When you're self-employed, you own a job. That is you all, right? Realtors are self-employed. People who clean homes for a living are self-employed. So you own the job, right? Meaning you're working, you're doing the job, and when you do that, you receive money, except you're the boss now instead of Home Depot, right? So then when you move over to the right side of this line, you have business owner. Right, this is more of if you were a 7th level team owner and you had a team of agents working for you and you are no longer selling, listing, run around buyers or what have you. Now you're a business owner. The folks that own Target, they are business owners. They aren't the ones in there at the cash register. They're not stocking the shelves, right? They own a business and other people work for them. And then you have an investor. Where money works for you. So this has been a huge conversation with my kids right now about what that looks like and how you do it at a young age. And so when you look at this, you all, 90% of our population lies on the left-hand side of this quadrant. 90%. And 90% of the money that is circulated in our nation comes from the right side of the quadrant. So I have a girlfriend who's also a team leader in another state, and we joke about being in the poor box or in the rich box. And we're like, where are we today? We're like, well, right now we both feel like we're spinning our wheels. We're in the poor box. You know, it's like, I got to get out of this box. What am I doing? What am I not seeing that's keeping me in this box? And so when we talk about these things of right now, you own a job as a realtor. And when you talk about going above and beyond and creating this business that's bigger and bigger and bigger, you receive so much referral business, and you become a part of this community, whether it's through social media, what have you, right? Do you see how all this is coming together now? Now, then you become a business owner. And so once you're a business owner, and this is where we're talking about being in the box or out of the box, once you become a business owner and you have other people doing it for you, then you have the time to become an investor. So when you all look at this, who's familiar with this? Who wants to share thoughts? I mean, I would love to hear if anybody, has everyone read this book? Phenomenal book. We'll talk about it. It'll be a recommendation another week. It's a phenomenal book. And another thing, if I could suggest, if you all will watch, Myra Oliver has on Facebook, her name is Myra, M-Y-R-A, and her last name is Oliver. And she has a Facebook page that's called Down Home Money. Down Home Money. And she does interviews with folks. And one of the people that she interviewed was Kellyanne Harris. And Kellyanne is an OP in our region, and she used to be with RE/MAX. And she's in a very small market, and she has a great deal of the market share in her market. And Kellyanne interviewed her. Myra interviewed her. So if you can find that interview, I would love for you to watch it. And Kellyanne talks about how many rental properties she has. And I can't remember, it was like 26 or 32, but it's more than 20, okay? And she's young. Kellyanne is she's way younger than me. And I think anybody that's younger than me is like way young, feel very old. And she is talking about how she has all of these rental properties, and she only has about $5,000 of her own money total invested. And so this is when I say I don't watch TV. These are the things that I watch. And so it's something that when we talk about educating ourselves and educating other people, this is a phenomenal book. It's a phenomenal book that increases your financial literacy. It helps you understand that you don't have to stay in the poor box, that there are boxes out there for all of us. It gives you just a better understanding of what all of that truly looks like. But I wanted to share this with you all because I feel like most realtors are in the S. What do you all think? Does that sound right? No? Yes? Why do you think that is? And the S is fine. I'm not dissing the S. Y'all want to be in the S, stay in the S. But why do you think that is, that most of us are in the S?
Because we don't get educated on the other stuff. When we begin this process of real estate, you're self-employed and you do your own thing. And then all of a sudden you realize this isn't just self-employed, you have a business. And they don't teach you that in Real Estate 101.
Right. Yeah, they don't. And they don't, I mean, I didn't even learn for years. It took me a really long time to learn about how I even set up my business. You know, it was like, oh, wait, what? I have to do what? I mean, you know, I had no clue of how to set things up for taxes or any of that, you know, and all I knew was just go sell another house. So with everything that we've gone through just over the last few months, it's become much more apparent to me that this is something that we need to talk about a lot more, right? And so when we're having conversations and saying, okay, that's kind of hard to talk about, or that's embarrassing to talk about, or that's difficult. So whether it's race or money or whatever it is, we obviously need to talk about a lot more things a lot more often. But I think that this is something that I've been having this conversation with my kids, and it's something that I feel like, well, if I'm going to do it with them, I may as well do it with my agents as well. And so in my top 20% appointments, we'll be doing them one-on-one. We're going to touch base on this type of thing a lot more in our group coaching sessions. I'm going to have some folks come on as guests to talk about some of these things of how you move from one box to the other, and you know how they do it. That's a great. Start there at that Facebook page, because there are some phenomenal interviews there on how to do it. But for instance, you know, I was talking to my daughter, and so sorry, gentlemen, this is in no way a diss to you guys. But I had a talk with her, and I just said, you know, she's very entrepreneurial. I know a lot of you all have met her and know her, and she's like, you know, 18 going on 40, and she's a very deep person. Doesn't say a whole lot. She's constantly processing, and she's more of the artistic mind, and she's a very deep thinker. But she's going off to school. She's been talking to this guy, and so I just felt like I felt a greater need to have some conversations with her about money. They've never really had to worry about money. I grew up very poor. I don't know some of your all's circumstances, what that was like, but I think when you grow up poor, you have a very strong, deep appreciation for what you have now. And they never had that. So I worry a little bit that they think that how they live is normal, right? And by no means do they have like some elaborate, I don't mean that at all. I just mean they don't really have to worry about anything, right? I had to worry as a college student about working and how I was still going to pay bills, and all of those things. And they just don't have to worry about that. And so I said to her, you know, you need to figure out now how you're going to take pictures, or what you're going to do, and what you're going to do with your money, because you need to start thinking about purchasing rental properties. You need to start thinking about a plan so that, you know, at least one, if not two, while you're in college, that you pick up a couple of rental properties. Because what I want for you is at 18, you've done that. And then by the time you're married and you start having children, you have some cash flow with that. And then by the time you're my age and you're at my point where you've been married for 20 years, you now have a portfolio, right, that has grown, and the debt is paid off, and you have several $100,000, whether you want to take that and reinvest it into other properties or what have you. But then you don't have to worry about working, right? You can stay home with your kids. You have the ability to help them pay for college. You don't have to stress over whether you're going to work and provide for your family, or if you're going to tend to your children on a daily basis. Those were things I had to worry about when I was younger, because there wasn't a lot of financial literacy in my family. So I didn't have anyone having these conversations with me when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, right? It was just like, get good grades and keep yourself out of trouble. Like, that was pretty much it. I have great parents. I'm not trying to say I don't. I'm just saying it was a very different conversation. And so what I want us to do is to realize that as realtors, we have this amazing ability to make a significant amount of money. And what we do with it, it's never too late. So, I mean, right now, the money that I would be using to put into rental properties, I'm using to pay for college and rent and all of the lovely things that go along with having two kids in school. So it's never too late. I just would love to know, what are some of the things that you all would like to know a little bit more about? And again, this is no judgment. I don't want anybody going, oh, I'm embarrassed to ask that because that's just a dumb question. I should know it. I promise you, most people don't know it. So there are no dumb questions when it comes to this. What are some things that you wish you knew a little bit more about?
I think for me, just in investing in properties in general, I mean, that's just not my forte. And like you, I came from very similar, you know, and, you know, when it's kind of like when I get money, there is a purpose for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's either savings or something gets paid off, or when I had all the kids in college, that was my one thing, you know, kind of thing. So I really never felt like, you know, I had the luxury of thinking about that, investment properties and rental properties. And so I I'm pretty much ignorant to the whole subject, so I'm always open to somebody teaching me about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Well, and this is where going above and beyond in your business, this is where the book recommendation for 1 million followers all comes into play. Because the idea is that we start to create income above and beyond what we need, whether it's just daily needs, savings needs, what have you. So we start to create true residual income. So that's the direction we're going for the rest of the year. Is going to be about how do we grow? How do we become, so for me, in having conversations with my clients, I'm okay with fierce conversations. I'm okay having those uncomfortable conversations. I think it's because I really just have no pride. So I just assume that I'm going to say something dumb. So I don't mind having a conversation with somebody and then saying, okay, yeah, I know I sound like an idiot. It's just having the conversation. So I feel like when you're able to do that, it sets you apart a little bit. So whether it's in a listing presentation or a buyer consultation or whatever the case may be, right? If you're able to have a little bit more of a difficult conversation, if you're able to put yourself out there a little bit more, or you're able to stretch that rubber band a little bit more, it just sets you apart from everyone else. And if you can get on track with setting yourself apart from everyone else, that's going to make the job of creating all of that additional residual income a lot easier. So I promise you all of this ties together. Sounds a little crazy, but I am crazy. And so that's where all of this comes from. But the idea is that we start to create a true plan of what it looks like and how we do it. So for instance, right now with my real estate business, we constantly have an ad going, something always going, you know, and people will say to me, oh, well, those ads are, you know, those people could be a year out. Yeah, they could. And I want to make sure that a year from now, I have more business than I have today. So if I'm going to assume that a year from now, I'm going to probably get the same number of referrals and that type of thing that I've always gotten in the past, well, then now I want to make sure that I have additional leads sitting there waiting to purchase and do something, right? So $50 a month, that's what we're spending, by the way, just so you know, not thousands, $50 a month. And that's throwing an extra 50 leads a month into our pipeline. So when I say we're throwing in an extra 50 leads a month into our pipeline, then this time next year, how many more people am I going to have in my database? $50 a month times 12 months.
600.
You're asking me to, yeah, 600.
600 people. So just real quick, the math on that, when we talk about the number of people that you have in your database and how many deals that you should get from that. So for every 12 people that you have in your database, you should get 2 deals, right? One of those is going to be a, hey, Bill, I need you to come and list my house. I've known Bill for 20 years and I just need you to come put a sign up. And then one is going to be a, hey, Bill, I got a friend at church that's thinking about selling their house, right? So one's going to be a direct, come list me, and one is going to be a referral. So when you talk about, that's why instead of saying whatever, so 2 for every 12, you should get 1 closed transaction at least. You may get 2, but at least 12. So we're going to be conservative, okay? And if I say that I'm going to add 600 people to my database, and I am going to touch them and nurture them, that's how many more transactions I should close. So this is what I'm talking about when I say I want us to create true residual income, is that if we start figuring out the little things we can do now that are going to add up, it's just like interest, it compounds, right? So the activities, the things that we do today compound. And the reason that I say we're going to take this a little bit slower is that I feel like for most of us, we think that we have to do it right now. And if we don't do it right now, we're a failure. And, you know, well, I can't do it right now, so I'm just not going to even bother with it because I just can't do it. But if we start doing baby steps and we add these things up, and this time next year, we're all having a conversation about how we closed X amount more than we closed the year prior, I think we're all going to be better for it. What do you all think? So, and they're real numbers, like this, they're real numbers. You know, you can't, I think that if we look at something on a monthly basis and say, oh, well, that's 50 people, but you know, none of them are doing anything right now. Maybe none of them are doing anything right now, but two of them are going to do something within the next year. And if I do that every single month, right, and that compounds, I have a very different business a year from now than I have today. So those are the things we're going to be working on. Is that a little exciting? Does that have anybody going, yep, I'll see you next Monday? Who has any questions or comments about today? We all good? Fantastic. You all have a great week. It's great to see your faces. I will be physically in the office this week on Wednesday and Thursday. So if you need anything, pop in and say hi. Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.